On July 27, 2021, at exactly 6:30 p.m., 5-year-old Michael Joseph Vaughan walked out of his home in Fruitland, Idaho, to play with his toy car in the neighborhood. Security cameras from a nearby house captured him laughing, running down the sidewalk, completely unaware this would be the last time anyone would see him alive. What investigators would uncover 3 years later would reveal one of the most disturbing cases in Idaho history. This is the story of Michael Vaughan, a case that gripped the entire nation and left a small community shattered. A case where the answers were hiding in plain sight, where a neighbor's secret would eventually surface, and where technology and relentless investigation would finally bring truth to light. But the journey to that truth would take investigators down a path darker than anyone could have imagined. Before we dive deeper into this investigation, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Here at True Crime Vault, we unlock the cases that deserve to be remembered. New investigations every week, and if this case moves you, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Fruitland, Idaho is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. A small town with a population of just over 5,000 people, nestled near the Oregon border. It's a community where children play outside until sunset, where neighbors wave to each other, and where parents feel safe letting their kids ride bikes around the block. It was in this seemingly safe environment that the Vaughan family had built their life. Michael Joseph Vaughan, known to his family simply as Monkey, was a bright, energetic 5-year-old boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. He loved playing outside, especially with his toy cars and trucks. He was the kind of child who made friends easily, whose laughter could fill a room, who trusted the world around him. His parents, Brandy Neal and Tyler Vaughan, had 3 other children, and Michael was their oldest son. He had just finished kindergarten and was looking forward to 1st grade. That Tuesday evening in July started like any other summer day. Michael had spent the afternoon playing in the yard, running around with neighborhood kids, doing what 5-year-olds do. According to his mother's statement to police, Michael asked if he could go outside to play around 6:30 p.m. She could see him from the window. She said yes, reminding him to stay where she could see him. He grabbed his favorite toy car and headed out the door. Brandy checked on him multiple times over the next 30 minutes. She saw him playing near the corner of their street, Southwest 8th Street, occasionally running back and forth with other children from the neighborhood. But when she looked out the window around 7 p.m., Michael was gone. At first, she wasn't alarmed. She assumed he had gone to a neighbor's house or was playing just out of view. But when she called for him and received no response, a mother's intuition kicked in. By 7:30 p.m., panic had set in. Brandy and Tyler began frantically searching the neighborhood, knocking on doors, calling Michael's name. Neighbors joined the search almost immediately. Everyone knew Michael. Everyone had seen him playing outside countless times, but no one had seen where he went. At 8:01 p.m., Brandy Neal called 911. The call was desperate, terrified. She told the dispatcher her 5-year-old son had vanished, that he would never wander off on his own, that something was terribly wrong. Fruitland Police Department responded within minutes. Officers began a systematic search of the neighborhood, interviewing residents, checking backyards, sheds, any place a small child might hide or get trapped. They brought in search dogs. The dogs picked up Michael's scent leading away from his home, down Southwest 8th Street. But then the trail went cold near the intersection with South Whitley Drive. It was as if Michael had simply vanished into thin air. As darkness fell on July 27th, more resources poured into Fruitland. The Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue arrived with additional tracking dogs. Volunteers from the community formed search parties, combing through fields, irrigation canals, abandoned properties. Helicopters with thermal imaging cameras flew overhead. Every hour that passed made the situation more dire. The first 48 hours in a missing child case are critical, and everyone involved knew time was working against them. By the morning of July 28th, Michael's disappearance had made state news. His photo, that smiling face with blonde hair and bright blue eyes, was everywhere. The FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team was called in to assist. Fruitland Police Chief J.D. Huff held a press conference, his voice steady but strained, asking anyone with information to come forward. He emphasized that Michael was not the kind of child to wander off, that his family was cooperative, and that they were treating this as a critical missing child case. The investigation moved quickly. Detectives interviewed every resident within a half-mile radius of Michael's home. They collected security camera footage from every house, business, and traffic camera in the area, They analyzed Michael's family background, checking for any signs of domestic issues, custody disputes, anything that might explain his disappearance. They found nothing suspicious. The Vaughan family was cooperating fully, taking polygraph tests, providing detailed statements. Every lead was investigated, every tip followed up on. One piece of evidence became crucial in those early days. A neighbor's security camera, positioned at the corner of Southwest 8th and South Whitley, had captured Michael playing outside between 6:30 and 6:52 p.m. The footage showed him running back and forth, playing with his toy car, occasionally interacting with other children. But at 6:53 p.m., Michael moved out of the camera's frame, heading west on Southwest 8th Street. He never appeared on camera again. Investigators studied that footage frame by frame. They tracked every vehicle that passed through the area during that time window. They identified and interviewed the driver of every car, every pedestrian, everyone who was in the vicinity. They examined the timeline meticulously. Michael was last seen on camera at 6:53 p.m. His mother noticed he was missing around 7:09 p.m. That left a 7-minute window when something happened to Michael Vaughan. As days turned into weeks, the case grew colder. Thousands of tips poured in from across the country. Every single one was investigated. Search teams covered hundreds of square miles, searching fields, forests, bodies of water, abandoned buildings. They used ground-penetrating radar in areas where the terrain made visual searches difficult. They checked sex offender registries, cross-referenced with individuals who had been in the area. Nothing. The community of Fruitland rallied around the Vaughan family in extraordinary ways. Vigils were held weekly. Blue ribbons appeared on trees and mailboxes throughout the town. Michael's face was on posters in every business window. Fundraisers were organized to support the family and to fund additional private search efforts. But despite the outpouring of support, despite the thousands of hours invested in searching, Michael remained missing. Brandy Neal, Michael's mother, became the public face of the search. She did interview after interview, her voice breaking as she pleaded for anyone with information to come forward. She described Michael's personality, his love for Hot Wheels cars, his excitement about starting first grade, his bond with his siblings. She made it clear that Michael would never have willingly gone with a stranger, that he knew not to leave the neighborhood, that something or someone had taken him against his will. As summer turned to fall and then winter, the active search efforts had to be scaled back. The case remained open and active, but without new leads. Investigators could only wait for that crucial piece of information that would break it open. The FBI kept the case on their radar. Local police continued to work leads as they came in. But for the Vaughan family, every day without answers was torture. Then, in the summer of 2022, nearly a year after Michael's disappearance, something shifted in the investigation. Detectives had been quietly building a case against someone, reviewing evidence, conducting surveillance, waiting for the right moment. On November 15, 2022, that moment came. Fruitland police, along with the FBI, executed a search warrant at a property on Southwest 8th Street, just 4 houses down from where Michael had lived. The property belonged to a 37-year-old man named Stacey Hobbs, and investigators believed Michael Vaughan's remains might be buried there. The search of Stacey Hobbs' property was extensive and methodical. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Ground-penetrating radar was used to scan the backyard. Excavation equipment dug into the soil. Forensic teams sifted through dirt, searching for any trace of Michael. The search lasted multiple days and the entire neighborhood was cordoned off. News crews camped outside, broadcasting live updates as investigators worked around the clock. But here's what made this development even more significant. Stacey Hobbs was not just a random neighbor. He had been interviewed during the initial investigation in July 2021. He had lived on the same street where Michael disappeared. He had been questioned. His property had been visually inspected. And at that time, investigators had found no reason to consider him a primary suspect. So what changed? What led investigators back to his property more than a year later? According to court documents that would later be unsealed, investigators had received information from a confidential source, someone who knew Stacey Hobbs, someone who had heard him make statements about Michael Vaughan, statements that were disturbing, incriminating, and specific enough that investigators believed they had probable cause to search his property more thoroughly. The nature of those statements was not immediately made public, but they were credible enough for a judge to issue a warrant. During the November 2022 search, investigators removed truckloads of dirt from Hobbs' backyard. They searched his home, his vehicles, his outbuildings. They interviewed his family members, his acquaintances, anyone who might have information. And while they didn't immediately find Michael's remains, they found enough evidence to arrest Stacey Hobbs on unrelated charges while they continued their investigation. He was charged with failure to report a death and destroying or concealing evidence. The implication was clear. Authorities believed Stacey Hobbs knew what happened to Michael Vaughan. The community was shocked. Stacey Hobbs had lived among them, unnoticed, unsuspected for over a year, while Michael's family searched desperately for answers. Neighbors reported that Hobbs had seemed nervous during the initial investigation, that he had kept to himself, but nothing had seemed overtly suspicious. Now, investigators believed he had been hiding a terrible secret just yards away from where Michael's family grieved. As the investigation continued into 2023, more details began to emerge. Prosecutors, in court filings, alleged that Stacey Hobbs had encountered Michael Vaughan on the evening of July 27, 2021. They believed that something happened between them, that Michael had died as a result, and that Hobbs had concealed his body to avoid prosecution. But without Michael's remains, building a murder case would be extremely difficult. Then came the breakthrough investigators had been waiting for. In early 2024, Stacey Hobbs, facing mounting evidence and pressure, began talking to investigators. According to sources close to the investigation, Hobbs provided information that led to a renewed search effort. In March 2024, investigators returned to a rural area just outside Fruitland, a location that Hobbs had allegedly indicated during interviews. This area had been searched before, but not with the specific coordinates and information Hobbs now provided. On March 12, 2024, the announcement came. Fruitland Police Chief J.D. Huff, flanked by FBI agents and county officials, stood before cameras and confirmed what Michael's family had feared for nearly 3 years. Remains had been found. They were believed to be those of Michael Vaughan. DNA testing would take several weeks, but investigators were confident. The location matched information provided by Stacey Hobbs. The circumstances matched the timeline of Michael's disappearance. The details of what investigators believe happened on July 27, 2021 are both tragic and disturbing. According to the criminal complaint filed against Stacey Hobbs, here is the sequence of events prosecutors would later present. At approximately 6:53 p.m., Michael Vaughan, playing with his toy car, had wandered further down Southwest 8th Street than usual. He ended up near Stacey Hobbs' property. Hobbs, who was outside at the time, allegedly called Michael over, perhaps offering to show him something, perhaps using the trust that a child naturally has for adults in his neighborhood. What happened next is where accounts become murky, and this is where the prosecution and defense would later clash. The prosecution alleged that Hobbs lured Michael into his home or garage under false pretenses. They theorized that Hobbs, who had a history of substance issues and erratic behavior, may have panicked when Michael became frightened or tried to leave. According to the charges, Hobbs caused Michael's death through actions that demonstrated extreme indifference to human life. The medical examiner's report, released months later after identification was confirmed through DNA, indicated that Michael's cause of death was consistent with asphyxiation. There were no signs of prolonged torture or sexual assault, which provided some small measure of relief to the family, though every detail was agonizing. The report suggested that Michael's death likely occurred within hours of his disappearance, meaning he had died that same evening while hundreds of people were searching for him nearby. Stacey Hobbs, according to investigators, had then concealed Michael's body on his property initially, possibly burying it in his backyard under cover of darkness. Investigators believe he may have kept the body there for weeks or even months before relocating it to the rural area where it was ultimately discovered. The reason for the relocation is unclear, but prosecutors speculated that as the investigation intensified and search efforts expanded, Hobbs became concerned about the body being discovered on his property. The forensic evidence connecting Hobbs to the crime included items found during the November 2022 search of his property. Soil samples that contained traces of human decomposition were found in his backyard, consistent with a body having been buried there temporarily. Investigators also found cleaning supplies recently purchased that suggested an attempt to eliminate evidence. Digital evidence from Hobbs' phone showed internet searches in the days following Michael's disappearance. Searches related to police investigation techniques, body decomposition, and ways to avoid detection. Perhaps most damning was the testimony from the confidential informant who first pointed investigators toward Hobbs. This individual, whose identity remains protected, came forward in mid-2022 claiming that Hobbs had made incriminating statements during a private conversation. According to court documents, Hobbs allegedly told this person that Michael had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, that things got out of hand, and that he couldn't let the kid leave. These statements, combined with the physical evidence, gave prosecutors confidence in their case. Stacey Hobbs was formally charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and destroying evidence in the death of Michael Vaughan. He pleaded not guilty initially, and his defense attorney argued that the statements attributed to Hobbs were taken out of context, that the physical evidence was circumstantial, and that without a clear cause of death determination, the prosecution's case was speculative. But as the evidence mounted, and as forensic analysis confirmed Michael's identity and supported the prosecution's timeline, Hobbs' legal position became increasingly untenable. In September 2024, as the trial date approached, Stacey Hobbs changed his plea. In a packed courtroom with Michael's family present, Hobbs pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and failure to report a death. The plea deal came with a sentence of 25 years to life in prison, with the possibility of parole only after serving the full 25 years. For many, this was justice, though no sentence could bring Michael back or ease the pain his family had endured. During the sentencing hearing, the prosecution read a victim impact statement from Brandy Neal. Her words were powerful and heartbreaking. She described the 3 years of not knowing, of searching, of hoping against hope that somehow Michael would be found alive. She talked about the guilt she carried, wondering if she had checked on him one more time, if she had said no to going outside, if she had done something different. She spoke directly to Hobbs, asking him why, asking him how he could have done this to an innocent child, asking him to explain what Michael's last moments were like. Stacey Hobbs, in a rare moment, addressed the court. His statement was brief and, to many, inadequate. He said he was sorry, that he never intended for Michael to die, that he made terrible decisions in a moment of panic. He claimed he had been under the influence of substances that day, that his judgment was impaired, that he didn't know how to undo what had happened. His explanation did little to satisfy anyone in that courtroom. The judge, in delivering the sentence, made it clear that Hobbs's actions after Michael's death, his concealment of the body, his lies to investigators, his allowing the family to suffer in uncertainty for years, demonstrated a level of callousness that warranted the maximum sentence. The case of Michael Vaughan raises troubling questions about child safety, about how someone with a history of substance issues and minor criminal offenses was able to live unnoticed in a neighborhood full of children. Background checks on Stacey Hobbs revealed prior arrests for drug possession and theft, but nothing that would have flagged him as a danger to children. Neighbors, in retrospect, mentioned odd behavior, a tendency to watch children playing from his porch, but nothing concrete enough to raise alarms at the time. The investigation also highlighted both the strengths and limitations of modern police work. On one hand, the persistence of investigators, their use of technology, their willingness to follow up on old leads even years later, ultimately brought resolution. On the other hand, Hobbs had been interviewed in the initial days after Michael's disappearance and had not been identified as a primary suspect until much later. The question that haunts many is whether more aggressive investigation of nearby residents in those first critical days might have led to Michael's discovery sooner. For the Vaughan family, the conclusion of the case brought a mix of emotions. There was relief in finally knowing what happened, in being able to lay Michael to rest, in seeing his killer held accountable. But there was also rage, grief, and a profound sense of loss that would never truly heal. Brandy Neal, in an interview after the sentencing, said that while she was grateful for justice, she would trade every conviction, every sentence, every moment of closure, just to have her son back for one more day. The community of Fruitland held a memorial service for Michael in October 2024. Hundreds attended. Blue balloons were released. Toys, flowers, and photos were placed at a memorial site established near where Michael was last seen alive. The service was a moment of collective mourning. but also a celebration of Michael's short life, his joy, his innocence, his impact on everyone who knew him. Today, Stacey Hobbs is incarcerated in the Idaho State Correctional Institution. He will be eligible for parole in 2049 when he is 62 years old. Michael's family has stated they will attend every parole hearing to ensure he serves the maximum possible time. They have also become advocates for missing children, working with organizations to improve Amber Alert systems, to educate parents about neighborhood safety, and to support other families going through similar tragedies. The case of Michael Vaughan is a stark reminder that danger can lurk in the most familiar places, that a child playing innocently on his own street can be stolen away in a matter of minutes, that evil doesn't always announce itself with obvious warning signs, and that when a child goes missing, every second matters, every lead must be followed, and investigators cannot rest until answers are found. What do you think about how this investigation unfolded? Could more have been done in those first critical hours? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Cases like Michael's remind us why the work of investigators and the vigilance of communities are so important. If this case moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to True Crime Vault for more in-depth investigations into cases that deserve to be remembered. As we close this investigation, let's remember Michael not as a victim, but as the joyful, energetic 5-year-old boy who loved toy cars, who made his family laugh, who had his whole life ahead of him. His story is a tragedy, but it's also a call to action, to watch over our children more carefully, to trust our instincts when something feels wrong, to never give up searching when someone goes missing, and to remember that behind every case, every headline, every investigation, there are real people with real lives who deserve justice, dignity, and to be remembered. Michael Joseph Vaughan, gone too soon but never forgotten. Thank you for watching this investigation on True Crime Vault. If you found this case important, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an investigation. Hit that like button to help us reach more people who care about these stories. And most importantly, share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. These aren't just stories. These are real people, real families, and real tragedies that deserve our attention and our compassion. Until the next investigation, stay vigilant, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth.